So I'm doing endoscopy for 76 through 79 at university hospitals. And I met Michael Gowder. He's a pediatric surgeon. Before he came, I was doing pediatric surgery with Bob Eisant. And we're scoping these little babies for various reasons, tiny newborns who had bleeding or whatever reason. And we noticed when the room lights were off, we saw light shining through the belly. And Michael was very innovative. And he said, you know, for a long time, I've been trying to find a cool way to do a less invasive tube in the stomach, a gastrostomy for feeding. And maybe we could use endoscopy to make this happen. So I remember we met in the corner of the hall one day. And we said, what if we put a tube together and we use the endoscope and we push with our finger, because we'd done that to see it indent. And we thought about all the steps to the procedure and all the pieces and parts that we would use from rubber tubes that were available. And we asked the mother's approval. We said this baby who's got brain damage is going to go to a nursing home, needs an operation to open the abdomen to put in a feeding tube. But if we try it this way and it works, it avoids an operation. She said, try. And if it doesn't work, we open. So we did it. And it worked. In a few minutes, we were done. It was the ASGE meeting at DDW in 1980. And that's the biggest endoscopy meeting at that time in the world, I think. Salt Lake City. I submitted the paper. I was so excited. I didn't know how it was going to be received. I was lucky it got on the plenary session, the big session. Historically, you have to understand that 4 years earlier when I was studying endoscopy and I flew to my first DDW ASG meeting, I was on the airplane and we're all up in the aisle talking about how excited we were to do this meeting and learn new stuff. And all of a sudden they said, well, where do you work? I said, I'm a surgeon at university hospitals. They all went back to their seats and left me alone. They wouldn't talk to me. 1980. And I present the paper with a short video of the subject. Only 2 people got up to discuss it. First was a surgeon, a friend of mine, Steve Hedberg from Harvard, Mass General. He gets up and he says, Jeff, that's wonderful. The trouble is that in half an hour, I can do the same procedure with an open laparotomy. What's the big deal? Okay, I said, that's probably true, Steve, except there's no laparotomy here. He sat down. The next guy to get up, who was known to all the endoscopy world like a god, was Peter Cotton. And Peter Cotton got up very soft-spoken. He says, Jeff, I only have one thing to say. I wish I'd thought of it. And that was it. It exploded like a bomb. From then on, my career was traveling, lecturing, demonstrating all over the world, and that was just the beginning of things that went on. Eric Pauly was a fellow of mine and technically superb and was excellent at all aspects of what we did. He introduced me to things in Florida because we would go down to the course that we had with Ohio State down at Marco Island. And we would go to Stan's bar, and Eric's become a great friend, but also he's a great talent. He's at Hershey. He's developed a great endoscopy program there.
So it's honestly really hard to pick a best Jeff Ponsky story, but I thought I might tell you guys about the first encounter that I had with Jeff. It was 2008, roughly, and I was a lab resident at Penn State. And I came back to the lab from doing an animal experiment, and on my desk was a little Post-it note from my administrative assistant, Bev, and the note said, please call Dr. Jeffrey Ponsky, and the telephone number was there, and I honestly thought it was a joke. I said to Bev, like, who put you up to this? And she said, nobody. That guy called, and he said he was looking for you, and so there was the number. And so I dialed the number thinking that I would get an administrative assistant, Stephanie, I now know, on the other end of the phone. But it wasn't Stephanie. It was his cell phone number. And he said, hi, this is Jeff Ponsky. And I said, oh, hi, my name is Eric Pauli. I work at Penn State, and you called for me? And he said, yes, I was just reading a paper that you published, and we're doing a course on natural orifice surgery at Case Western, and I wanted to know if I could use some of your slides and images in my presentation. And I said, obviously, yes. Can I email them to you? And he said, sure. Here's my email address. And so I emailed them, and he replied back and said, thank you, this is great. I actually wound up going to that course, and he in fact used slides and gave me credit for it. And I remember him also saying that when you get a chance, please introduce yourself to me. And so at the first chance that I had, I did that. That was on an aircraft carrier sitting in the middle of San Diego, as I recall. I came up and I said, Dr. Ponsky, my name is Eric Pauli, and you asked to use some slides of mine. I just want to introduce myself. And he said, I remember that. Thank you very much for those. Please apply to my fellowship. And I said, I think I might do that. And so that's how I first encountered Dr. Jeff Ponsky.